Hey, welcome to my series of videos on research regarding transgender issues, particularly policies and practices. Today, I'm going to be talking about a particular research study that was just published by Armstrong et al. In a BMJ franchise open access journal. And I'm going to argue that this article really should never have been published. It is very poor quality, in my opinion, and it really, I believe, was written to make a political point rather than legitimately do objective science, and that always disturbs me. But in order to help you see what my concerns are, I'm going to actually bring up the article so that you can see what I'm talking about. And so I've highlighted some of the major concerns. The first one is that the article was published in an open access journal, which means that the authors paid to get the study published. People can say what they want. I have less trustworthiness in an article when people pay to get their work published. And they do that because the turnaround decisions, the turnaround times on decisions, the published tend to be shorter, and publishing in an open access journal means that the readers do not have to have a subscription to the journal in order to access the content, which increases the likelihood that the article will be cited. And so for me, that's one issue. The second issue is that the authors state that they did this research to test the hypothesis that natal male non-binary athletes outperform natal female non-binary athletes. And so let me explain those terms. Natal male and natal female refer to the sex someone is assigned at birth. The terms they use are dated, outdated, and really do not reflect contemporary cultural competence. We now refer to assigned female at birth and assigned male at birth. The non-binary means that these are individuals who eschew categorization as male or female, and intentionally do not identify as either. And so by even testing this hypothesis, the authors are imposing their ideology of a world that should be binary, or they believe should be binary, on a group that has intentionally stated they do not wish to be classified as in that binary. Okay, so that's an issue. Another issue relates to the methodology of this study. And of course, a lot of people who are non-binary are not going to say I'm male or female on a registration form for a race. And the authors attempted to look up records, prior records, to see if they could identify the runners, what they call natal male or natal female categorization. And one of the issues there is that people who identify as non-binary don't necessarily consistently use either of those categories, and oftentimes will just leave it blank. So they couldn't know how often that occurred. And the other issue is that people do change their name. Now, the author said that when they couldn't clearly discern a runner's time, they used probabilistic modeling and used a large database to see how common that name was at the time the person was born. And so I find that problematic because there are a lot of people like me who have a name, Robin could be either. And there are a lot of people who change their names across time, along with their pronoun use, and trying to impute somebody's sex based on name is highly unreliable. From a methodological perspective, in order to use this methodology, which they seem to be very self-impressed about, they should have done some research that tested the reliability of using that methodology, or they should have referred to prior research that had used that methodology. And so, as a peer reviewer, I would have rejected it and said, it is a novel methodology, but it's unreliable. We need testing to see if it's something that will give us the same results over time. Another major issue that I have and would have led to rejection outright is that the authors concluded that the natal male non-binary athletes outperformed the natal female non-binary athletes at a confidence level of P equals 0.1%. Okay, so why is that problematic? Unfortunately, in order to help you understand, for me to explain it, I have to go back into some statistics. And so let me get this started. Okay, so let's imagine that you're a researcher studying sleep patterns. And then based on your observations, you've come to believe that women sleep more than men. And so I'm using an example parallel to the one that they used, that they believe that that the natal males will run faster than the natal females. And so they state their hypothesis. And in this example, I'm going to say, as a rigorous researcher, you want to test your hypothesis, and I would argue as rigorously as possible, by doing your very best to disprove your hypothesis, rather than as what these authors seem to have done, which is to try and prove their point. And so what you really want to do in disproving the null hypothesis is test the likelihood that average sleep hours for females equal average sleep hours for males. And with the paper we're referring to, that would be average running times for natal females, and running times for natal males are the same. And so then we can write an alternative hypothesis. In this case, as the example, average sleep hours for females are greater than average sleep hours for males. In their example, it would be their alternative hypothesis that that natal male non-binary runners, athletes, run faster on average than non-binary natal female runners. Okay, so I encourage you to stop the video and kind of look that over to be sure you're understanding that point before you go on. All right, so what a test of a hypothesis will ultimately give us is a p-value, and there are a whole bunch of different tests and rules for what kinds of tests to use, but pretty much they always give us a p-value that ranges between 0 and 1, that tells us the probability we would have gotten a particular result just by random chance alone. And so you can think of one distribution, which is a large bell-shaped distribution. There are many, many, many different kinds of distributions, but for our purposes, we're going to look at what's called a bell curve. And so you can see here they have it shaded in green, the p-value area, which is the probability of an observed or more extreme result, assuming that the null hypothesis is true. Okay, so that is kind of an overview. We're looking at the probability of the observed value being more extreme result occurring if the null hypothesis is true. Okay, so let's look then at the conventional p-values. In medical research, because we're talking about life-saving and life-affecting issues with side effects, etc., the conventional p-value is 0.01, meaning we're willing to take one chance in 100 of making an error in rejecting the null hypothesis. And so in the example I'm using with women's sleep and men's sleep, the null hypothesis tests equality between sleep times between sexes. And so there's that corollary with the author's study. We're testing they should be testing the hypothesis that there's equality between the natal female and natal male non-binary athletes running times. So in contrast to medical research in almost all other fields, the conventional p-value is 0.05, which is, of course, 1 chance in 20 of making an error in rejecting the null hypothesis. And only when it really does not matter and the risk of erroneously rejecting the null hypothesis doesn't matter much, do we use a p-value of 0.1, which is 1 chance in 10, double what is ordinarily accepted in conventional research. So if we go back then to the article, we see that they use p equals 0.1%. And technically, p equals 0.1% doesn't even meet the criteria for rejecting the null hypothesis at 1 chance in 10. In order to do that, it would have to be less than 0.1%. But in any case, we probably wouldn't use a p-value of 0.1% unless we wanted to do very exploratory research. An example I like to use with students is standing on a street corner and seeing if dogs of a particular breed pee on the telephone post telephone pole more than other breeds. We just don't do it when something makes a difference. And of course, given the policy implications, which they say up here, how the study might affect research practice or policy, they're essentially saying, yeah, this has an effect. We believe this has an effect, in which case they're saying we should not have used a p-value other than lower than p equals 0.05. And so that's problematic. The final major issue that I have with this this really horrendous paper is that the authors contradict themselves. What they say is based on their really sloppy methodology is that they have provided evidence against the theory that an individual's gender identity plays a significant role in these disparities in addition to their natal sex. And they're really looking at this kind of in an additive way when really it isn't a binary at all. But okay, so let's not focus on that. Instead, what I want to focus on is that here they are saying that there's evidence against the theory that an individual gender identity plays a significant role. And then they contradict themselves below by saying, how does the study affect research practice or policy? Here then, they turn around and say that the study highlights the importance of collecting data on both natal sex and gender identity. And so clearly, it's not logical to say in one point about what the study adds, it really disproves that this makes any difference, and then say, oh, well, it really is helpful and affects research practice or policy because, well, it does. And so on the mathy scale of research and doing peer reviews, not only would I say this is an article that I would have recommended flat out rejection for, I honestly would love to use this paper as an example of how not to do not to do research. I really believe that the authors set out to make a point rather than seriously engage in scientific research. And that is evident to me because they are, as I said, imposing their own ideology of sexual binary on a group, a population that has specifically eschewed being identified that way. And so on the mathy scale, I would probably give it a D minus. But I think I will use this article in the future as an example of a study that gets published that never should have. And to be fair, I have an article that I published that never should have been published, and I am not reluctant to show that to students. It happens. I think across our careers, many of us find that we publish something that, in reflection, it shouldn't have been published. So I'm not. I want to make it clear, I'm not making a judgment on the researchers themselves or their caliber as researchers. And I'm not even making a comment about the caliber of the journal per se. I do have a bias against open access journals and paying to get one's research published. And I want to be clear about my bias. That's mine, and I own it. But that said, this particular study is really awful. And yeah, I think the public that is making decisions about gender issues, transgender issues, needs to be aware of how misleading this particular article is. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you, as always. Leave a comment or a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you leave a comment, I always respond. So if you have any questions, including the statistics, if I didn't explain something clearly enough, let me know and I will give you an individualized answer or clarification. Thank you. Bye.